Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be heartbreaks, rebounds, and moving on. Well, I've got an email here from a woman who got her heart broken, and now she started dating again, and she's worried about the guy that she's dating using him as a rebound. And it's really cool. She really goes into detail on what happened with a previous relationship. And so it's great because you get to see a woman's perspective and how she views things and how she goes through a relationship, dating, kind of walking away, feeling like she got used. So before we get into it, I got a quote that I'd like to share with you. And it says, "Everyone has had their heart broken at some point in life by someone they loved. Heartbreaks are a part of life. The reason why we suffer so much after a heartbreak is because we have become attached to the person we loved, and our identity becomes associated with being with them. That is why we often no longer feel like ourselves after a breakup. We suffer when we want reality to be other than it is. The key to moving on is to let go of what was and take the risk of getting hurt again by dating someone new. However, to avoid emotionless rebound relationships and unnecessarily hurting others, make sure you actually care about and desire those who you get involved with. Have empathy and concern for the feelings of others, and never lead people on or use them as an emotional crutch when recovering from a breakup." So let's jump right into her email. She says, "Hi Corey, I'm a female who recently went through a long-distance relationship and a breakup. It started 7 months ago. He flew out to meet me and we both fell in love. We texted daily. He said so many things to me that made me love and trust him completely. We had future plans together. Then recently I flew out to see him. He was very excited I was coming. 2 days before I flew out, I sent him a text telling him that I was feeling very nervous, and he told me not to worry, that he would take care of me, and that he loved me. Obviously your spidey sense was tingling and telling you something was amiss, because obviously something was different. This guy was no longer showing up and doing and saying the things that he once started out in the beginning. And it's good that that happens, because obviously you know something is up. But like when we start to feel those feelings, like when we can tell the other person that we're dating, maybe they're not investing the same amount of energy and effort that they once were, we should look at that objectively and not just keep driving full speed ahead. And that's why it's important to look at someone's actions instead of their words. She says, "It was a Thursday when I flew into the airport and he picked me up. I don't know why, but I felt very insecure about seeing him." Well, obviously something was different. Something was different about his level of effort that just simply wasn't there like it once was. She says, "And about what he thought of me, as it was 3 months since our last encounter." Well, that's a long time that you went 3 whole months without seeing him. Like, I know a long distance relationship that I wrote about in my book. My girlfriend would fly back to the UK because she could only stay in the States for 90 days at a time. And she would be gone from anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. And it's like every time she came over, the immigration authorities would really start to scrutinize her more and more as to why she was coming over, because what they're really looking for is they're trying to prevent people from coming in and working in the States and then flying back home and then coming back a week or so later to get another 90-day window where they can stay in the States. So I was always worried, because at any time the immigration person has the authority to say, "You know what, you've been over too much, you need to buy a ticket and fly back." And there would have been nothing I could have done about that. So she says, "To make a long story short, I noticed he was no longer the person I met back home. He was not loving or caring. He was not romantic and barely made eye contact with me. I could tell that he had changed." Well, obviously at some point he realized that he wasn't, for whatever reason, he didn't see the same kind of future evolving. And that happens sometimes in a relationship. Sometimes you date somebody for 6 months, sometimes it's 2 or 3 years, and you just realize that long term they're not what you really want and you're not what they really want. And just in this particular case, he tended to realize that, but you also noticed that something was amiss in the relationship. She says, "On Sunday morning, I finally asked him why it felt so awkward between us, and he said, because it is. I asked why, and he said he no longer felt the same. She says, I was in shock because for the past 7 months he'd been telling me he loved me. However, the fact that he's saying all the right things on the phone, but yet the fact you went, a whole 3 months without seeing each other, it's important to look at that. You got to look at someone's actions, and if he really felt the same, there wouldn't have been 3 months that went between you. Like my girlfriend was in the UK, we would go maybe a month at the most, and that was just simply because it took time for her to book a ticket and fly back over. Because she had a job and things that she was doing over in the UK, but she would come and she would stay almost a full 3 months with me up until the maximum time that she could stay with me. So she was showing up, and we were spending every minute. She was living with me when she was here, basically. But the only reason that she went back is because legally she couldn't stay in the States, and I just was not at a point where I was ready to marry her. She says he'd been reassuring me that I was the one he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. That's why, again, you always look what someone does, not what they say. If that's really the case, he wouldn't have waited 3 months to come see you or have you come see him. He was telling me he wanted to move in with me, etc. In a matter of a few minutes, it was over, and I was devastated. I flew back with my heart shattered. I was a mess. It's only been 4 weeks, and I sometimes have to go into the ladies' room at work so I can cry my eyes out. I basically flew 5 states away to be fucked and then dumped. It's like, it sucks, but that happens. Everybody has been at that point in their life where they were dating somebody they really cared and the other person just didn't feel the same. But when you look back on it, obviously hindsight's always 20/20, you can always realize that the signs were there. The signs were there that this other person was not making the kind of effort that they should be making. But we all bullshit ourselves because we want to believe the fantasy. We want to believe that we found the right person, that our search is over, and we'll never have to be single again. But that's just part of life, and these are the kinds of things that you learn from, that you realize, you know what, next time around, I'm going to be objective. I'm not going to just completely ignore all the signs that are there, because it's the type of thing where you want to consistently see that that person is always making the effort. And sometimes two people, you either grow together or you grow apart. And obviously in this particular case, you started to grow apart, and he saw it before you did, and you just didn't admit it to yourself. But that's okay. That's part of life. She says, I feel so unbelievably used and disrespected. I had no clue this was going to happen. He never once alluded that he was having second thoughts. He was saying all the right things, but his actions were not matching his words, and that's where you went wrong. That's where you kind of bullshitted yourself. She says, I recently, however, met a very sweet man. We've gone out 3 times, and we talk about all sorts of things. We get along great, and it's so comfortable to be around him. We've even talked about my recent breakup and his past relationships. He truly has been a good friend. On our second date, I decided to kiss him. I wanted to know if I'd feel that spark, and lo and behold, I did. He's a great kisser. It's awesome that you have the guts to go for it and go for the kiss and not wait for the guy to kiss you. Because a lot of women wait for the guy to do everything. And what I like, me personally, when I'm dating, I like a woman who's not waiting for the guy to do everything and she doesn't hold back. It's really important in a relationship that the other, because you don't always want to be the one that always initiates sex. You don't always be the one that's doing all the kissing or all the initiating. You want to see that the other person is willing to do it. That tells me you're a good woman. The fact that you're willing to put yourself out there and go for what you want. I love women like that, because a lot of women are very shy, they're very timid, and they wait for the guy to do everything. She says that he's an attractive man, but most of all, he's my friend, and he's very dear to me. He's kind and he's gentle, and I wouldn't want to ever hurt him. That's part of life, you got to roll the dice, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but that's just life. And the more relationships you have and the more breakups you go through, the more experienced you become going through these things. She said, but I'm worried that he may be my rebound. I don't want him to be. Well, then don't use him. If you ever get to the point where you feel like you don't want to be with this person, don't lead him on like the other guy led you on. The other guy obviously manipulated you, but you always got, it's the most important thing. It's just like what Dale Carnegie said. He said, the older I get, the more I look at what people do and the less I listen to what they say. It's so true. And that wisdom's 100 years old. And it's just true today, and it'll be true 100 years or even 1,000 years from now. She says, I really could fall for him, not now, of course, but in the near future. And here is, you got a woman confirming that women fall in love slowly over time. That's why, for all the guys that are listening to this, that's why it's important to not, you can't rush that. It's a process. She says, I know I can't give him the part of me that he wants, my heart, yet I know I'd like it too. Tell him to be patient. And you got to remember, us guys, we're logically brained. And so if he's pushing a little too far, say, look, you got to be patient. It's going to take time. It may take me several weeks or several months to feel the same type of feelings or to fall in love with you. So don't rush the process. You've got to be patient. Because if you rush, come right out and tell him. Say, if you try to rush it, it's a total turnoff. It comes off as needy, insecure behavior. And I'm telling you this because I care about you, because obviously we were friends beforehand, and I don't want to ruin things, and I don't want you to ruin things, so I'm trying to help you by guiding you and telling you specifically, explicitly. Because too many women don't understand the fact that they tend to be more emotionally based, and us guys tend to be logically based. Think of us as like dogs. Sit, lay down, roll over, don't do that, don't pee, don't poop. Like, you know, it's like, I mean, you literally have to tell us guys that so we get it. Because so many women assume that a guy will get it, or they talk in circles, or they use innuendo, or they use relational stories hoping he'll figure it out and read between the lines. Don't assume that he can read between the lines. Tell him specifically, explicitly what you want and expect from him. And if he's doing too much, if he's calling too much, if he's pursuing too much, tell him that. Tell him that he needs to back off a little bit and let you initiate a little bit more of those things. And if he's not a needy, insecure jackass, he'll actually listen to you and take that advice. She says, I was honest with him and told him that I'd like to keep seeing each other to see where it may go. That is, if he wants it too. How many times have I said in videos that women go out just, like on first dates, just they want to see where things go. She says, I told him I couldn't sleep with him because it wouldn't be right, as my heart is still aching for my long-distance relationship. I'll tell you what, it will definitely help you get over things if you are intimate with a new guy. Because what happens is you're dating one guy, it's like you don't want to get into a position where you're using him as an emotional tampon, if you will. But it will, because like I said, if you don't move on completely, you're in essence still kind of holding on to the fantasy that you had with the other guy. She says, I told him that I cared too much for him to make any mistakes and possibly ruin what we got. Well, don't get into a situation where you're holding back and not being authentic and not going for what you really want because you're afraid of getting hurt. I mean, that's just part of relationships. And I found that it really helps when you're intimate with somebody new that you're dating and everything's going well, as opposed to saying, you know what, I'm going to purposely withhold sex here because I don't want to get hurt. That's not being authentic. That's not showing up. That's holding back. And that's not going to help your relationship grow and evolve. She says, I don't want to blow with him, and I really do like him. Then don't hold back. She says, more than I want to show him. And do you think these feelings I have for him are only a facade? I want to get over the idiot that hurt me so that I can be me again. Well, then act upon your feelings. Because what I'm reading here what I'm seeing is that you're holding back in a way, even though it sounds like you're ready to be intimate with this guy, but you're saying to yourself, oh, well, I don't want to be intimate because of what happened in the past. The past does not equal the future. So don't bullshit yourself into believing that somehow withholding sex from this new guy is somehow going to make it better. It's in the long run, it's not going to be helpful to your relationship because you're holding back. You're not being authentic. Because I deal with a lot of guys that are in relationships or in marriages especially, and sometimes the women they're with, they get pissed off at them. They purposely withhold sex. They kind of use sex as a weapon. So don't do that. Don't get into the habit of using sex for manipulation. But the key is if you feel something for this guy, then keep dating him. But if you're at the point where you don't feel it's going anywhere, then you got to be honest and tell him and get out of it. And don't lead this guy on. And just like I said in the quote, use him as an emotional crutch. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way to get my help is go to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and follow the instructions for booking a paid phone coaching session with yours truly. And I will talk to you soon.